Welcome to Wrestling Throne. There's something brewing in WWE that nobody wants to talk about openly, but everyone can feel it in the air. Seth Rollins, one of the company's most dependable stars, one of their cornerstone talents, is slipping through their fingers. This isn't a sudden explosion or a dramatic walkout scenario. This is a slow burn that's been building for months, and now it's reaching a critical point where WWE might actually lose control of one of their biggest assets. Seth Rollins has been the consummate company man for over a decade. He's been the guy who shows up, does the work, carries storylines when they make no sense, and elevates everyone around him. When WWE needed someone to fill the gap after Roman Reigns left, Seth stepped up. When they needed someone to work with part-timers and make them look good, Seth delivered. When they needed someone to anchor the mid-card while still feeling like a main eventer, Seth Rollins was their guy. But something has shifted, and that shift is becoming more apparent with each passing week. The problem started subtly, as these things often do. It wasn't a single moment but rather an accumulation of creative decisions that seemed to work against what made Seth Rollins special. His character has been in this strange limbo where he's too important to be irrelevant but not important enough to be positioned at the very top. He's floating in that dangerous middle ground where WWE seems to take him for granted, assuming he'll always be there, always ready to do whatever they ask, regardless of how it affects his position on the card. Look at his recent storylines and you'll see the pattern. He's been feuding with people who, while talented, don't elevate him or give him that main event feel that someone of his caliber deserves. He's been put in programs that feel like they're designed to fill time rather than build to something meaningful. The creative team seems to be using him as a utility player, someone they can plug into any situation to make it work, but they're not treating him like the star he actually is. This is how companies lose their top talent, not through one bad decision but through 1,000 small ones that add up over time. The most telling sign is how the audience is responding. Seth Rollins can still get a reaction, that's not the question. He's too talented and too charismatic not to. But there's a noticeable difference between the reactions he gets now and what he was getting even a year ago. The crowd still pops for him, but there's a sense of routine to it. They know Seth will deliver a good match, they know he'll cut a decent promo, but there's no excitement about where his character is going because even the fans can sense that WWE doesn't have a clear plan for him. What makes this situation particularly dangerous for WWE is that Seth Rollins is exactly the type of talent that other companies would love to have. He's a proven draw, he can work any style, he's great on the microphone, he has name recognition beyond WWE, and he's still in his prime years. If his contract situation becomes uncertain, if there's even a hint that he might be unhappy, you can bet that other promotions will be circling. This isn't 2015 anymore. Wrestlers have options now, and someone like Seth Rollins would have his pick of where to go next. The comparison to CM Punk's situation years ago is hard to ignore. Not because the circumstances are identical, but because the pattern is similar. You have a top-level talent who has given everything to the company, who has been loyal and dependable, but who is slowly being worn down by creative frustration in a sense that their contributions aren't being properly valued. Punk reached a breaking point and walked away. WWE probably thought that would never happen until it did. Are they making the same mistake with Seth Rollins? There's also the physical toll to consider. Seth has worked through injuries, he's performed at a high level for years, and he's put his body on the line repeatedly for WWE. At some point, a wrestler has to ask themselves if it's worth it. If the creative isn't satisfying, if the position on the card doesn't reflect their contributions, if the money isn't right, why keep sacrificing your body? This is the calculation that every veteran wrestler eventually has to make, and WWE seems oblivious to the fact that Seth might be doing that math right now. The company's handling of part-timers versus full-time roster members is another factor that can't be ignored. Seth Rollins is there week after week, carrying television, working house shows, doing media appearances. Then a part-timer comes back, gets a premium spot at a major show, and leaves again. There's nothing wrong with using legends and part-timers, that's smart business. But when your full-time roster sees that the best spots are always being held for people who aren't there regularly, it creates resentment. Seth has been professional about it, but that doesn't mean he doesn't notice. That doesn't mean it doesn't affect his thinking about his future. WWE's roster is deeper now than it's been in years. They have incredible talent across the board. But depth is only valuable if you're using it correctly. What WWE seems to have forgotten is that having a lot of talented wrestlers doesn't mean you can afford to lose your proven stars. Seth Rollins isn't just another good wrestler. He's someone who has main evented WrestleMania multiple times, who has held every major title, who has proven he can be the face of the company. Those guys don't grow on trees. You can't just replace that level of experience and credibility overnight. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for WWE either. They're in a period of transition with their television deals, with their relationship with Saudi Arabia, with how they're positioning themselves in the streaming landscape. They need stability in their main event scene. They need reliable stars who the audience trusts and invests in. Losing Seth Rollins, or even having him become disgruntled enough that his performances suffer, would be a significant blow during a time when they can least afford it. What's particularly frustrating from a fan perspective is that the solution seems obvious. Give Seth Rollins a meaningful storyline. Put him in a program that feels important. Let him chase the world title again with the sense that he might actually win it. Stop using him as a placeholder and start treating him like the main eventer he is. It's not complicated, but WWE has developed this habit of overthinking things with certain wrestlers while being completely tone-deaf to what the audience actually wants to see. The social media presence and public statements from Seth have also been interesting to watch. He's always been someone who engages with fans online, who isn't afraid to defend WWE when he believes in what they're doing. But lately there's been a subtle shift in his tone. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would make headlines, but if you've followed him for years you can detect a difference. There's less enthusiasm, less defensive creative decisions, more generic corporate responses. It's the kind of change that suggests someone who is going through the motions while figuring out their next move. WWE's creative team has this frustrating tendency to assume they can always course correct later, that they can always rebuild a wrestler's momentum when they decide they need them in a bigger spot. Sometimes that works, but sometimes you damage someone standing to the point where it's hard to get them all the way back. Every time Seth Rollins is booked in a nothing feud or loses in a way that doesn't serve a larger story, you're chipping away at the audience's perception of him. Do that enough times and even the most talented wrestler starts to feel less special. The locker room dynamics also play a role here. Seth is respected by his peers, he's someone younger wrestlers look up to, he's a leader behind the scenes. If he becomes openly unhappy, if he starts questioning creative decisions more forcefully, that attitude can spread. WWE has to manage not just Seth's individual situation but also what message it sends to the rest of the roster. If a loyal veteran like Seth Rollins can't get consistent main event booking, what hope does anyone else have? There's also the question of money. Seth is presumably well compensated, but is he being paid like the cornerstone talent he is or like a very good upper mid-card guy? WWE has been making record profits, their television deals are worth billions, but are they investing that money back into keeping their most important performers happy? If another company comes along and offers Seth not just more money but also creative freedom and a guaranteed top position, that's a compelling package that WWE might not be able to match if they've been taking him for granted. The women's division evolution in WWE actually provides an interesting parallel. For years, WWE had talented women on their roster but didn't know how to use them properly, didn't give them enough time or significant storylines. Then other companies started showcasing women's wrestling, fans demanded more, and WWE had to completely change their approach. They almost lost several key performers in that transition period. The situation with Seth Rollins could follow a similar pattern where WWE doesn't realize what they have until they're in danger of losing it. What happens if Seth's contract comes up and he decides to test free agency? Does WWE scramble to offer him whatever it takes? Did they let him walk thinking they can replace him? Did they try to call his bluff? These are decisions with major consequences, and WWE's track record on handling contract negotiations with unhappy stars is mixed at best. Sometimes they keep people happy, sometimes they let valuable performers leave over what seem like solvable issues. The fan investment in Seth Rollins is still there despite WWE's booking. That's actually a testament to how good he is. He's maintained his connection with the audience even through mediocre creative because he's that talented. But WWE shouldn't mistake that for a free pass to keep booking him poorly. Eventually, if you tell the audience often enough that someone isn't a top guy by how you position them, the audience will start to believe it. Seth has staved that off through pure force of personality and in-ring work, but he can't do it forever. Looking at the bigger picture, WWE is at a crossroads with how they manage their roster. The old model of having 2 or 3 massive stars and everyone else being replaceable doesn't work anymore. The audience is too sophisticated, there are too many alternatives, and wrestlers have too much leverage. You need to keep your entire upper card feeling important and valuable. Seth Rollins should be right in the center of that upper card picture, not floating around the edges of it. The injury history is also something that has to be on Seth's mind. He's had major injuries before, he knows how quickly a career can end. If he only has a few prime years left, does he want to spend them doing nothing feuds in WWE, or does he want to explore other options? Does he want to take fewer bumps and work a lighter schedule somewhere else? These are legitimate questions that any veteran wrestler would be asking themselves, and WWE needs to give him reasons to answer those questions in their favor. The merchandising aspect is another indicator worth watching. Seth Rollins' merchandise still sells, but WWE hasn't really pushed his character in a way that creates new merchandise opportunities. When was the last time he had a character evolution that led to a new shirt design that fans got excited about? When was the last time WWE built his character in a way that opened up new revenue streams? If you're not investing in a performer's marketability, you're not really treating them like a top star. One of the most dangerous things WWE is doing is making Seth Rollins feel replaceable. That's the kiss of death for keeping a top talent happy. Every wrestler needs to feel like they're uniquely valuable, that they bring something to the company that others can't. When you start rotating people through similar spots, when you make it seem like anyone could do what they're doing, you're telling that performer they're not special. Seth Rollins is special, but WWE's recent booking hasn't reflected that. The international appeal of Seth Rollins is also being underutilized. He's someone who could be a bigger star globally if WWE positioned him correctly. They could be using him to headline international tours, to be the face of expansion into new markets, to be someone that represents WWE worldwide. Instead, he's just another guy on the roster. That's a waste of his potential and a missed business opportunity for WWE. What makes this situation particularly tragic is that it's preventable. This isn't like a Brock Lesnar situation where you have someone who wants to do UFC or has specific demands about schedule. Seth Rollins just wants to be used well. He wants meaningful stories. He wants to feel like his work matters. Those aren't unreasonable demands, and they're completely within WWE's power to provide. The fact that they're not doing so suggests either incompetence or a dangerous level of complacency about his value to the company. The ripple effects of losing Seth Rollins would be significant. He's someone who can work with anyone, who makes everyone look good, who can be trusted with any spot on the card. If he leaves, that's a hole that's difficult to fill. It's not just about replacing one main eventer, it's about replacing someone who provides stability and reliability to your entire operation. Those intangible qualities are often undervalued until they're gone. WWE also needs to consider the message it sends to other talents if Seth Rollins ends up leaving or becoming openly unhappy. If someone who has been as loyal and professional as Seth can't get the booking he deserves, why would anyone else trust WWE with their career? The company's reputation in handling talent is something that affects their ability to sign new wrestlers, to keep current ones happy, and to be seen as the destination for serious professional wrestlers. The next few months are going to be critical. WWE needs to wake up and realize what they're about to lose. They need to give Seth Rollins a reason to stay, to believe in the company again, to feel valued. If they don't, if they keep sleepwalking through this situation assuming he'll always be there, they're going to look back and realize they lost one of their most important stars through their own negligence. This isn't a natural end to someone's run, this is WWE actively mismanaging a valuable asset, and the consequences of that mismanagement are about to become very real. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and like.